Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Paranormal Palaver, where we interview the experts in the paranormal and the experiencers thereof. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of the Paranormal Palaver. Today we bring on the experiencer, John Eagan. There was events that began to happen in his house and with his family that he has written a detailed account of, which you can find at his website. The things that happened to him over the course of events not only happened to him, but happened to his wife and son as well. We need to get right to the end of this matter, and this is really what's the crux. What happened, and how did he stop it? With that in mind, we're going to get him to give his full story. Let's cut straight to the chase.
Oh, Matthew, it's an honor to be here. We're going to talk today about this apparition I had that appeared in my house. But before we do that, I'd like to give you some kind of a background about me, because when I hear about these things, I wonder about the person. I don't know. Does that happen to you once in a while?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, so you wonder about the person, and what's their credentials? Are they nutty or something, I'm not nutty. I mean, I have good credentials. I was a best-selling author about 20-something years ago. I had 2 national magazines I had my column in. I was in many national magazines and many newspapers. I'm an artist. My art was, you could see my art in Ripley's, believe it or not, in their 2018 edition. I'm also, USA Today did a whole page on me and a piece of my artwork, not that long ago, probably about a year ago. So I'm not like a crazy person, you know what I'm saying? I've done a few things in my life, and I wouldn't written a book like this if it didn't really, really happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. And that's why this stuck out to me, because this is not some random individual that we can just label as a schizophrenic. You had multiple witnesses. You had your wife and your son. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're going to get into that in a few minutes too. Yeah, because I think that helps. Because I'm a little skeptical. When people talk about these things, and you have any witnesses or anybody who can collaborate with you, what actually happened. But I would like to explain a little bit about me and why this apparition came. And by the way, this is like the antithesis of any kind of an apparition I've ever read about or heard about, and we'll get into that when we finally start talking about the actual event. So it's very interesting. I was born in Brooklyn. Because most people back then, they got their children into their religion, and when my parents did that, and parents kind of stayed together back then. I went to a parochial school. I learned my religion. It was a time where people went to church. I mean, my religion today, they say like 70% of them have dropped out. I can see that when I go to church, because back then you couldn't even get into church in Brooklyn. Now the pews are just like very sparse. You know what I mean? It's not that they should. Why don't they get up and go to church once a week? But I don't know. This is the new era now. It's a new day and age. So that's how it is today. So from Brooklyn, I moved to. My dad actually moved us all to New Jersey. He had 6 kids. I went to what it was called Trenton State College, but now it's called the College of New Jersey. I got my degrees there, and I started teaching as special ed. A teacher. And that's when I kind of felt blessed, because you work with these children who qualities or attributes or characteristics are not like normal children, And then I started thinking I was blessed, and I took my life for granted, because there are people out there that don't have all these wonderful, characteristics that we have. So that's why I started thinking that I should pay back what I was given. But I always prayed. But I meditate and pray about an hour and a half a day, and I've done that for years and years and years. So this is part of the reason why I think I had this aberration. But as a special ed teacher, you don't have to correct paperwork and stuff at night because these kids aren't that intelligent. They're just going to do very rudimentary things when they get out of these schools. So I had a lot of time extra. So what I did was I started bartending at night. That's when I met like a lot of more shady characters, more cagey characters, people that were looking, kind of wicked people, that but I still related to them. I mean, they're looking for adultery and alcohol and drugs, and I mean, every other word out of their mouth is like blaspheming God. Atheism was so rampant out there. But when I met these people, I had a different feeling, of why are these people like that today? And a lot of these people died young from like car accidents, overdoses, so many cancers because they smoked and drank so much. And I felt that they died in a state that no person should die in. So during my meditation, I would ask God, don't send these souls to hell until I'm finished praying for them. No matter how long you give me on this earth, I'm going to continue to pray. And I just keep adding for all the people that died over the years to this group that I've asked God not to send to hell. I'm not sure if He will do that, but that's what I've done for so many years. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. You were crying out and pleading for the lost. We're told to do that, so yeah. I understand.
And in my religion, we believe that we're told that souls fall into hell like snowflakes from the sky. And especially if nobody's praying for them. So I felt that these people, I related to these people. I laughed with these people. I never, went out with them. I was the bartender, so I had a bar between me and them, you know what I mean? And they had a great old time. And, working was fun. I enjoyed everybody. I was able to relate to all these people. But just as I said, it's not, you don't want to die in the state that these people have died in. So I felt I would pray for them. So that's what I did, and I still do that to this day. And I do meditate for about an hour and a half a day. So that's, I think, well, when we start to talk about the actual apparition, I think you'll understand. And what I saw during this apparition, because I'm an artist, everything I saw, like if you went to my website is John-Eagan, EAGAN.com. If you go there, you can see exactly what I see because I'm an artist and I'm able to depict what I saw. I drew exactly what I saw in my living room that day. So that's on my website. That's part of the book that, Between Love and Hate, The Devil is Real. So you could go there and see that. And anything else I've told you, I did a beautiful bust of Jesus that was seen all over the world from used adoration candles that my wife is in charge of at the church over here. And then you're supposed to throw them out, and then she's saving them. And there was boxes of them in the basement. And I said to my wife, what are you doing with all these used candles? She said, they're so precious. They kept Jesus company for countless hours. I didn't have the heart to throw them out. She said, you're an artist. Why don't you do something with them? So that's when I decided. I melted them all down. I created a life-size bust of Jesus. If you Googled wax bust of Jesus by John Eagan, you'll see that. That was it was in USA Today too, and that's in Ripley's Believe It or Not this year in their 2018 publication. So that was good for me that I did that. So anyway, if you want to get started, that's what my basic history of myself is. And if you want to get started with the actual apparition,
well, let's do some qualifiers first, because when people come across an interview like this, they have immediately thoughts that jump in their mind to try to counter this. Because, to be honest with you, it's so scary. People immediately want to reject it. It's kind of like being asked if you want to go to the front lines in World War I. Of course you don't. Of course you don't. So let me ask you this. Was you, your wife, or your son partaking in recreational drugs?
No, that's a good question. Because you would think, you would think that if you have a hallucination, you would have to be either a reaction to a medication, doing drugs, or have some kind of disease where you get hallucinations. None of us have any of that problem, so that's not it. I've never had like a seance or used a Ouija board or seance, any of those things. I never invited this creature here. I never opened the door for this creature here. You know what I mean? I know that people do that, and that could happen to them. It's a very dangerous thing to do. The only other time that I had, not my encounter, but my brother had an encounter when he died. He, in our family, my dad died early. We have this blood disease that runs in the family. It didn't get me, thank God, but it got my brother at a young age. He's about 40. He started feeling the same symptoms my dad had. But back when my dad had a heart attack, they couldn't save him. Back then, they didn't have the technology they have today. And he went to the hospital. He was on the gurney. He was in the hospital bed. He had the heart attack. He died. So they revised him. So when we went to go visit him, he said to me, Johnny, when I died, he said, devils came for me. He said, why did demons come for me? He said, well, while he was dead, he got up off the hospital bed. He was watching the doctors and the nurses frantically trying to revive him, bring him back to life. And in the meantime, it was the hospital room that he was in his spiritual form. Something in the dark corner of the hospital room, 6 creatures came and grabbed him. They weren't huge demons, he said. They were like, 3 or 4 foot tall. And they grabbed him and they were trying to drag him into the darkness of where they came. This is really the only time I've ever, and I know my brother's normal, so, I've never really believed anybody before, but I believed him. And then he would, but when they finally revised him, he got to go back into his body, and that was over. But he was so concerned about why demons came for him when he passed away. And I didn't really have an answer for that. I couldn't really, who would know? The only thing I could think of was, he left the religion. We were all brought up in our religion, as I said earlier. Some of us lost it. Some other people came, took compassion. I mean, that happens. I'm telling you this now because when we actually talk about the apparition that I had, to see how this powerful creature, if a human being can take away your compassion or your love for God and turn you into an atheist, you're going to know what this enormous creature can do, the power of this creature, when we finally talk about it. So, the only thing I could think of was, he left his religion. He stopped going to church. He didn't get married. He was with a woman for 20 years. He had kids. I asked him, his name was Paulie. I say, Paulie, could any one of your kids actually recite one prayer? You've never give them a religion, to have. It was like it totally turned your back on God. I don't know if these creatures came to bring you to hell, or to bring you to see this kind of creature that came to this house. I don't know if you're going, but it certainly is when you leave this earth and God has a chance to show you something. Sometimes you really get a big kick in the butt. You know what I mean? Now he's a very religious person to this day. He goes to church. He's very religious. He's totally a 180-degree turn for what his life was before and what it is now. But that was the only other time I've heard about anybody close to me ever having an encounter with devils or demons or whatever you would say. Now, we all know about devils and demons. I mean, we all read about them. Everybody knows in the Bible, we were told God created heaven, and then he created angels and archangels, right? And we all know that. And it seems like, and then when we get to the apparition later, we'll find out why this might have happened. Seems like something happened between God and these great creations of his, like these archangels are supposedly so beautiful and so powerful. I guess they, at some point, because this was before time began, there was no time. I mean, maybe after certain, who knows how long, they decided they're going to break off on their own. They're not going to obey God anymore. I mean, us people do that. I mean, you know what I mean? We decide we're not going to obey God. I've done that in my life. I can't say I'm perfect either, but so these creatures who were closer to God decided that, and I don't think God had a choice at that point but to just cast them out. You know what I mean? They didn't give them a second chance. Like we get second chance, third chance, 100 million chances here. Anytime we commit a sin and we repent for it, God forgives us. We know, and I'm sure he does. But I guess in that state, he just kicked them out. So they went somewhere, and I guess they went to hell, or they roamed the earth here, because I hear a lot of stories about them. They're in the next life, that's for sure. There's no doubt in my mind that they're in the next life. So that was really the only actual, encounter of somebody who I knew was presented with demons in his life, and I believe what he said.
With that being said, that has a lot of qualifiers with it, because he was concerned. He was obviously not a bad man, your brother.
No, not a bad man at all.
Because he was really, that's what really confounded him. Why were they coming? So that right there, John, is proof in the pudding that he was at a loss as to why demons were coming from him. So it's overtly obvious to me from your statements that he was not dabbling in witchcraft or any kind of crazy thing like that.
Nothing like that.
So that's what makes this stand out again, this confusion as to why. So that bears testament in itself, just him asking you the question.
Yeah, of why this happened, and it's very. I mean, we were praying for him the whole time. I think that helped him too at some point to get his life back, and I think God, like I said earlier, I think if God has a chance to show you something, He's not going to hesitate. And the fact that if you don't give God 2 minutes of your time while you're here, He's not coming running for you when you die. You know what I mean? That's what I believe anyway. You have to develop a relationship with Him here. And Jesus, you have to develop a relationship with the next life. I mean, that's our true home is supposed to be, the next one. Like here, we're only getting about 80 years if we're lucky. I mean, that's the average lifespan in America. But there, we're getting an eternity. So it's something like everybody should think about. And the other thing was, don't leave here with any hatred in your heart. That's one of the things that when we finally get into the actual apparition that I had and what I learned from this thing, that's any hatred for your brother or sister, your neighbor, any race, religion, or anything that you have animosity towards. Get that out of your heart, because that's not the way to leave this earth. That's one of the worst ways to leave,
I understand. I understand completely. The negative atmosphere will draw a negative atmosphere, and it'll just compound itself. Let me ask you this. So your wife and your son was not doing anything strange or out of the ordinary. They were just normal people, not dabbling in anything. Were they alcoholics? Were they drinking whiskey? Anything like that?
No, not really. No, we might have a glass of wine with dinner once in a while or something like that, but no, we're not alcoholics or drinking whiskey. My son's a very intelligent human being. He was first. Well, I have 3 boys, but he was the last one to be born. He was first in his high school. He was first in his college. He just got, as a young man, he just got offered $100,000 a year to run the advertising department in this pharmaceutical company. So he graduated college, number 1 of his class. He got a good job, but then he asked me, can I come back home and I want to start my own business? I was like, fine, because we have this big house. Everybody's moved out. My wife has that, empty nest syndrome kind of thing. So I was so happy he could come back that, somebody could come up and have dinner with us and things like that. So, he was just a very workaholic, and he would just do it. He never really got into any of that nonsense, like we talked about earlier, seances, tarot cards, Ouija boards, anything that would open the door for this, That's one of the most dangerous things to do. That's partly why I wasn't that frightened of this creature, because I didn't invite it here. And then when we start to talk about it, it didn't look like it was able to harm me. You know what I mean? And I took this as like a gift, this whole experience of this creature here. And what I learned from it, I took that as actual gift from God, that I can relate this now through this book. And my website is John Eagan, EAGAN.com, if you want to go there and see the actual creature. Because I'm a good artist, when I was having this apparition, I focused this creature in my mind so I knew every single inch of it, so I could finally, when it was over, I wanted to depict it exactly how I saw it, and I wanted to depict every single word of what I learned from it. The only thing I couldn't do at that time was verbalize it. That's weird, right? I couldn't talk about it. And then when at some point my wife was saying, "Why are you drawing, a picture of what looks like a demon?" And I couldn't even tell her at the time, believe it or not. And when I wrote this book, I could put down because I wanted to get it down on paper, and I wanted to paint it before I lost any part of it. You know what I'm saying, Matthew?
I know exactly what you're saying. You were in shell shock.
Yeah.
You were in shell shock. This is classic, atypical. You're frozen. You can't talk about it, but you got to get it out. And you being an artist, God used that venue to, of course, produce your quite disturbing depiction that you use as the front cover of your book.
Yes, absolutely.
It's amazing how God plays a chess game, and you have no idea how he's going to win the game until the last move. And by golly, that piece is right exactly where it needs to be every single time.
It's true, isn't it? Isn't it, Matthew?
Yes, it is. It's very true. So, with all these things being put in order and in their proper place, the listener can understand that we're dealing with an absolutely normal family.
Yeah, absolutely. Normal family. Goes to church on Sunday. I've taught my kids they're in their religion. They're confirmed in their religion. I can't say they go every Sunday. You know what I mean? The boys. Mm-hmm. But they try. You know what I mean? And they believe in everything that we were supposed to. I mean, any religion. And I try at this point, whatever your religion is, go back to it and find out through your religion what's the best way to get yourself into heaven and the best way to connect with God. Whatever your religion is, just get back to it and start working. And because nowadays, Matthew, pornography is a multi-billion-dollar business. Sex trafficking in young children, multi-billion-dollar business. Greed is rampant. Hatred is prevalent. War is kind of like everywhere in every little country out there, Suicide, now this is weird. Suicide rates among young boys have doubled. And suicide rates among adolescent girls tripled. Now, what is happening in this world today? I mean, we have this technology which seems wonderful, and these young, adolescents they all have their phone, and they have these apps where there's Facebook and every other app. They have a million friends on it. Why are they so lonely that they're tripled now? Their suicide rate is tripled. You would think this technology would make them happier, connect with people. But truly, Matthew, I don't believe that this technology of texting and, having 150 friends on every single app, I don't believe people are actually connecting. Although they're trying so hard, everywhere you look, you're in the mall, you're anywhere, everybody's head is right in that phone, They're looking down at their phone, they're sitting down somewhere and they're texting, or even if they're at the dinner, you got 5 people at dinner, 3 of them are texting. You know what I mean? Not even involved in the conversation at the dinner table. So this is something I believe is working like a neutron bomb. A neutron bomb doesn't have a big explosion. But the neutrons penetrate through the buildings, through armor, through the ground, and it kills from within. And this thing is almost, don't you believe that? It's almost acting like a neutron bomb, killing from within. If our next generation, the millenniums, killing themselves so much more today than they did in the past with all this wonderful technology.
Well, John, this whole episode reminds me of something back from my college days, 1997.
Yeah.
There was an Etruscan tomb discovered, and this tomb is known as the Tomb of the Blue Demons. And this place, the Greeks, of course, called, and the Etruscans, they called it Oblivion. And that's exactly what my wife and I say that it is. That's why when people come over, and exactly what you said, we'll start having dinner, and the kids will start picking up the phones, and they're not at the dinner table with us, John. They're in Oblivion.
Yeah, exactly.
And the problem with that is those statistics that you just rattled off, that proves that in Oblivion it's going to lead to death. and it's going to lead to no good thing. We have abortion off the charts.
I know.
We have suicides off the charts. We have depression off the charts.
Yeah.
And that's why my wife and I call this place you're referring to that doesn't exist. You think you have 150 friends. No, you don't. If you've never seen them and you've never, give them a hug, if you've never ate supper with them, they're not real. They exist only in the electronic oblivion.
Right, exactly. They're nothing but a couple of letters on your phone. They're just letters.
That's right.
You're not relating to them as a human being to each other. You know, you don't see their body language. It's just you're texting to somebody and then I mean, it's not even enough time in a day if you have. I know people have 500 friends on Facebook. How are you going to connect with those people every day? It's impossible.
Well, it goes beyond that, John. Let's be real, you and I. We are both married, okay?
Yep.
And I can declare unequivocally that one of the things that constituted a major part of the interaction with me and my wife before we were married was this little concept known as pheromones.
Pheromones, right, exactly. Yeah.
I know what she smelled like. I enjoyed her smell. And you're not interacting with somebody that's a real living being unless you can actually smell when they sweat. Yeah. And they put on perfume for you whenever you go out.
Yep.
If you can't smell them, they exist only in this electronic oblivion.
Yeah, and pheromones, you can't even produce pheromones unless you touch each other. It's, like skin has to touch together, so these pheromones can be produced inside your body, and they could get out into the air so you could smell them and you could feel it. You know what I mean? There's no way you're going to get a pheromone through an iPhone.
John, this is what the ancients believed, that this place of the dead was an oblivion, separated from contact, and that these demons, and especially in the case of this cave discovered there, it was blue demons that was escorting people to death. And with that in mind, let's get to the events, John.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Describe to us what happened to you and what you were doing at the time. I mean, at the time, was you taking a bath?
No, well, the begin with, when I realize now, when if a demon is coming into your home, it is going to it's not going to come passing through and you don't know it's there. It's coming for a reason, and it's going to make you and anybody else in that house aware that it is here. So my first inclination was I have a house. I have a living room. I sit on a sectional couch like most people do, and that's where I do most of my meditation there. And while I was meditating, and I stopped for a minute, and I have the house is on top of the basement and the garages. And the house is on like a hill, so when you come in with your car, you come in under the house into the garages, and then I made an apartment down there for my first son. Because his room, he didn't, he was getting bigger and he wanted bigger. So I split the basement in half, made an apartment down there. There's a metal door between the garages and the basement, and then the apartment in the basement. So I'm sitting there. I could hear that door open and close, when my wife comes home, when Johnny comes home, something like that. I'm sitting there and I hear that metal door slam shut like never before. And I know, thinking to myself, what was that? I know my wife couldn't even slam that door that hard. My son maybe could if he had a car accident or his girl broke up with his girlfriend or something. So I get up and I go to investigate. So I go downstairs. I see the door is fine. I go up. I get the flashlight. I'm thinking, did somebody? I look everywhere, under the steps, in the closets, in the furnace room, everywhere that I thought somebody might be hiding down there. I have cameras. I have a camera system, a security camera system. I look in there. I go back 5 or 6, 10 minutes of when it might have been, if somebody was outside and somehow got in. There's a camera on the garage doors. There's a camera on the other door on the side where you can come in just a regular door. There was nothing there. So I kind of knew something was wrong at that point, and I felt something ominous, inauspicious. The only word to really describe it is like evil. I felt something was evil. I'll try to explain what that means a little bit later. So I'm thinking, what can you do? There's nothing you can do. So a few minutes later, there are steps that lead from the basement up to the kitchen. The kitchen is alongside the living room. And I could hear when somebody's walking up the steps. And something heavy was walking up the steps. So I know there was nobody down there. I'm hearing something heavy walk up the steps slowly. And I hear it. So I get up to look. I hear it come around. I can hear it walking in the kitchen. And then there's a hallway that goes down to bedrooms behind me. I could hear it walking down there and then coming like to the last bedroom and slamming the door of the bedroom. So that was just its way of telling me it's arrived. It wanted me to know it arrived. So that was my first encounter. And it was here, and it wanted me to know. He wanted my wife to know, and it wanted my son to know, because when my wife came home, she said, there's something wrong with this house, she said. I didn't want to say anything, what I thought. I didn't want to scare her. You know, how do you tell your wife something like that and then go out and play golf or something? You know what I mean? Matthew, you can't do something like that, right?
Right. There's no way you could do something like that.
So she says, I feel some presence of evil. And I was like, I don't know, Lillian, really what. So we're there, and now we both hear, again, footsteps from the basement on those steps again. And my wife is like, looks at me like, because we know Johnny's not home. She goes, Johnny? Like that, you know? And it's just very slowly, very much more heavy than Johnny is. He's about 170 pounds. He could make itself wait. This creature could almost, well, when we finally get into it, it has a lot of powers, I'll tell you. It could make itself sound like something heavy walking on steps, and she would get up and then look, and I'm thinking to myself, oh boy, you know, this is really going to be, when she thinks, you know, so she's like, what was that? She says to me. Then we're there, and then we hear the back, one of the doors from one of the bedrooms slam, and she's like getting frantic. She said, you know, I really feel there's something evil in this house. And I was like, well, you know, and Matthew, what, you know, there's nothing a man could do about something like that, you know. I mean, we're friendly with the church over here. Well, let me tell you what happened with Johnny. So this was last summer. I have a beach house down in Long Beach Island. So we go down there on the weekends, and some of my other family members come down, and we hang out for the weekend down there. This one weekend, Johnny doesn't go. He goes once in a while. Doesn't go all the time. You know, when he feels like it. He has work to do here. So he calls the beach house and says, "You two down the beach house?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're down the beach house." And he says, "Well, something weird is in this house." And he was talking to my wife, and I'm hearing it. And I'm thinking, oh boy, this is not going to be good. He goes, I'm downstairs in my apartment. I hear something really heavy walking around upstairs. He goes, I hear doors slamming upstairs. So this is this creature who wanted him to know he was here. He was, you know what I mean? He was making himself known. So he says, I go upstairs. I'm looking around like, are they home? Who's up here? And then he starts hearing it downstairs. He has like a mirrored closet door back there. He hears it slamming back and forth. He hears his door slam open and close. He goes, I think there's something like really weird about this house. I think there's something evil in this house. It wanted all three of us to know it's here. Okay, but we didn't know why, you know what I mean? And we didn't know what to do, but we knew it was here. At night when we would be asleep, you know, you're sleeping in your bedroom, you think you're safe, right? And I could hear something heavy breathing, like almost like a 800-pound buffalo would sound like if it was breathing. And it would wake me up and wake my wife up, and now she's all upset. Like, what is breathing in here? What is doing that? We have to do something about this. We have to talk about this. So it was like, well, what do we post it? Like, I didn't know what, I'm a man. I don't know what to do. Well, should we have somebody come here and do an exorcism or something, you know? I was thinking, well, we know that, you know, we belong to the church here. We know them, the priests there. They know us as a normal family. We actually have like every spring we have like a garden party outside, and the priests come over and the parishioners, and everybody, you know, have fun. We have like meetings here sometimes, you know. the priest come over here for dinner. It's like we're normal people. Now I got to go over there and say to him, "Hi, Father. Guess what? I think there's a demon in my house." Like, how do you even? And what is he going to do about it? You know what I'm saying, Matthew? Like, how do you solve a problem like that? But I'll tell you how we solved it when we finally get into it. But it's a conundrum, right? You don't know what to do. I've never had this encounter like this before in my life. And the only other one I told you about was my brother, and that was like not near me. It was his problem, now it's my problem.
Right. So you got that feeling, when your brother was telling you this at the time, because he was your brother, you knew him, you knew he was telling the truth, but it was safe, John. It was outside your foxhole.
Exactly.
But then all of a sudden this happens to not only you, so you're not going crazy. It's happened to your wife.
Yeah.
You both can't be going crazy at the same time. And third time's a charm.
Exactly.
This is happening to your son. There's no physical possible way 3 people are going crazy all at the same time. But unfortunately, this thing is in your foxhole.
Yeah, it is. So, like Matthew, if say me and you did a drug, and you had a hallucination, we would never have the exact same hallucination. I would have my own hallucination. Like we both couldn't. If you could ask any psychiatrist in the world, no 2 people who do a drug or have a reaction to a medication or have some kind of a disease where hallucinate are going to have at the exact same time have that hallucination. It's impossible. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. That's right.
So that's why this is more, it's more relevant, because this is what happened to the 3 of us. We all heard it at the same time. We all knew it was here at the same time. We all heard the breathing. We heard the door slamming. We heard the footsteps. And, of course, we didn't know what to do about it. Neither did I. And I guess the next step would have been, well, before I tell you exactly what happened, I guess, what would you do? You would go to the priest and say, well, do you have a priest that knows how to do exorcism? And can you come to the house?
Well, John, let me show you some mercy, okay? No.
Yeah.
The last thing on earth I would do would go see my priest that frequently came over to my house for birthdays and dinner parties. That'd be the last thing on earth I would do. I would go to somebody else's parish. I would drive to the next town and tell that priest. And then I would ask him, please don't tell, my priest this is happening, because I would be afraid that once the whole church found out, well, they would all treat you like you had leprosy.
I guess so, right? I would think so. Although they're very wonderful, beautiful people, and they all know there's a spiritual battle happening, and they all speak about it, this spiritual battle. I mean, you see it every day. I see it every day.
Right.
Like you said about abortion, we don't want abortion. I mean, how could anybody nowadays think that they can kill a little baby? That's a woman's right. And you see all these politicians out there fighting for this. You can't. That's God. God. Back when before time began, when we say God always was, always will be, we kind of always was and always will be, because we were in God's mind. Every one of us was, right down to our last DNA, was in God's mind from the beginning. You know what I mean? So all these babies, they're His creation. He loves them more than we can. He's infinite. He has infinite love. We only have a finite kind of a love for our children. He loves them more than we do. And to think that we could go in there and kill this beautiful, innocent creature, and in this day and age, and the whole world believes that, and we've done 60 million of them already in this country. This is something these demons want. Believe me, this is something they want. This is something that hurts God. That's what they want to do. And it's one of the things that really hurts God a lot. When I see these politicians saying this is a woman's right to kill the child that's inside them. It's a woman's right not to do something that, maybe even some kind of something, but just do something that you don't have the baby. You know what I mean? I don't know, but just don't have a child. Once you have the child, that's the end. You got to go with it. You know what I'm saying? Can't kill it. Right. That's murder.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, and euthanasia is like, oh yeah, sure. So we don't want these people wasting all our money with all the medical things they need. Just give them something and let them die. That's not. This new age is scaring me a lot.
Yes, it is.
And I try to tell my children about it and don't fall into the. I mean, I have nephews, Matthew, that were brought up like we were brought up in our religion, and I'm in New Jersey, so they got jobs in New York. Okay, great. They became atheists. Somebody came, like when we talk about this creature that came here, some person without the power of these creatures, these archangels that turned into whatever giant devils, came and took their love for God away. They convinced them that there's no God. They became atheists. And then when I try to talk to them about it, bring them back into some kind of realization, they laugh at me. Now, they're at that point where, and I know atheism is spreading, they'll laugh at me when I talk about God. And then one of my nephews said, okay, when God sticks his head out through the clouds and go, I'm God, then I'll believe him. How about that? I'm trying to explain to him that God's infinite. He doesn't have a head. If he had a head, that would limit him. You know what I mean? Well, whatever's inside there, he has no limits. He can't. The clouds aren't enough. The sky is not enough. The earth is not enough. That you can't see his creation. No, they don't. They convinced themselves. Well, somebody came and took that away. You know what I'm saying? It took their goodness away from them. I also have another relative who, my wife goes sometimes to the hospitals, and she visits with people that are in there that are really in bad shape. And she brings them like clothes and, goodies and stuff like that. And sometimes we bring them here on a wheelchair, and have barbecue with them and hang out at the pond and look at, just to get them out of the hospital for a day. And one of my relatives said, they're better off dead. And I'm thinking, we were all brought up this way. How did somebody come and take your compassion? They just came and took it. How did that happen? That's what's happening to the world today. People are coming and taking it, you know what I mean? And this pleases this demon that came here. I can see that it's pleasing him.
I understand, John. We have woke up in a very terrible place. That's all I've got to say. I don't know when it happened, and I don't know how it happened. But everything you just described is exactly what's happened, and you can prove that on paper.
Absolutely.
And it is terrifying, and it's getting worse, and it's getting worse, and it's getting worse. And I'm not sure how God is going to put a stop to it, or he's going to put a stop to us, one of the two.
I know. He's very compassionate. He's very loving. He's very forgiving. Maybe he has some other idea of you know what I mean? Or maybe the pendulum is really swinging way off to the wrong way. Maybe like people like you with these shows or something like that can help bring people back into focus again, what they really should be doing in life. I mean, you can have anything you want in life. It's not like evil to have like a house, a beach house, the cars that you want and everything like that. That doesn't take anything away from me. I still meditate an hour and a half a day. I still have my connection with God. You know what I mean? He's number one in my life. That's all you have to do is make him number one, not technology, not, you start worshiping things that aren't him, then you've done the wrong thing. We have to kind of get back, like I say, get back to whatever religion you are. Get back and learn whatever way that gets you to God the best way. You start working with that, whatever way that your religion teaches you. That's the thing. But that's like so passé now for the new millennium of, progressive liberals. I don't know, what are you going to do? And all these atheism and all these things that are happening today. It's just very scary. And I'm just hoping that the pendulum will come back the other way. People that I know are fed up with this nonsense, you know what I mean? But this next generation seems to be just sliding right in there, just falling right through the cracks.
Yes, I understand. So with that in mind, let's talk about the alternative to having everything that you want if you really desire it and work hard enough. There's something else out there that wants something else. Yes. And I think you ran into it.
Yeah. So, Matthew, I'm where I usually am, in the afternoon to do my meditation on the sectional. And, because I'm Catholic, I use the rosary a lot. So I do lots of rosary. So I finished saying my rosary. I put it on the sectional. I have a glass table on the side, on my right side, and a lamp there, whatever you normally have there. And I put my rosaries there for a minute, and I, take a break. And in the corner of my eye, on my right side, the whole side of the living room started to ripple, like if you were to throw a rock into water, and you know how it kind of ripples. This is what was happening to the air on my right side, and then I saw just a wall of blue flames, just a blue. I don't know why blue. I mean, I guess maybe there's no oxygen where this creature exists. I know flame. I mean, fire is like it's like a miracle in itself. I mean, fire for humans, you know, you could heat stuff up with it. You could stay warm it. You cook. You could forge steel together and make the third steel even stronger to begin with. That's a miracle. And this fire was a miracle in itself too. And I'll try to explain it to you more. So I see a giant wall of blue fire, just a wall of it. And then I start to get up out of my seat to get it. You know, it was like right next to me. I didn't want to be that close to it, to get in front of it more. And I see what I thought at first was like coral, things that look like coral, like long coral, you know, you see it in the ocean, coming through the flames very slowly, not like in a rush. Like, Matthew, I don't know if you ever went to like a board meeting, and all the subordinates come in, and they're fussing with their tie and their notes and their skirt, and they're sitting there, and they get there early, and they're jittery. And then the CEO walks in, and he owns the room. I don't know if you ever experienced that.
Yeah.
He takes his time. He's no rush. He owns the room here.
Yep.
He takes this. Yeah, right. He takes the superior seat, and it starts when he starts. So that's how this creature. I saw these protrusions coming through the fire. Then I knew in my mind this is what all this was about in the house. All this, I start to see its head, and it had at the top of its head was like a horseshoe crab. If you ever seen a horseshoe crab, you know, the way I drew it, like if you went to John Eagan EAGAN.com and you want to look at it right now, that's exactly what I saw. Its head came through up to like its neck, but it didn't look like it could go any further. I think that's what kept me, centered. I didn't feel like maybe I was a little bit in shock. I didn't feel like frightened, like I wanted to run out of the house. I wanted to understand what was going on here. I mean, I think most people to hear something run out of the house. I don't blame them for that, but I wanted this was all happening so slowly, like, I say it's the antithesis of any kind of an apparition, because all the other things I see on TV is like there's wind blowing and lightning and chairs flying around and a thing is screaming. This is nothing like that. Nothing at all like that. This was intelligent, in control, owned its own space. He owned it. You know what I mean? Like he's sitting in fire, blue fire, up to his neck. It didn't seem to. He owned it. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. He owned that place that he was in. For him, whatever happened between this creature and the Almighty God, before time began, he deserved this. He looked like he deserved this punishment. Like if Matthew, if I was in prison and you came there and they were blaming me for something I didn't do, the first thing I would say to you is, I didn't do this. I don't deserve to be here. You know what I mean? I didn't, whatever it was. This thing owned it. This is where it exists. He had no problem with it. He had like skin for a face, but in being in the flames, it didn't burn like his skin. Like his skin was fine. I tried to put every single detail in the book so the next person who reads it can maybe find something in all the details that I maybe missed. It's sitting in flames. Well, the head didn't have any kind of flesh. It was like a shell. Everything was protruding out of its shell, straight out and up. I guess you would say horns, but they were like I said earlier, they were like some kind of crustacean or something like that, coral-looking things, and it came out pretty far. It was powerful. It could probably use those protrusions and just shove you right into the wall with it if it wanted to, but it couldn't. I could see that it had to stop at some point. That's why I say this was a gift to me. I didn't invite it here, so really I don't believe it could harm you unless you invite it here somehow, or somebody invites it here, you know what I mean? I didn't invite it here. Nobody here invited it here. So it only could go to that point, and in blue flames, like, so it started to relate information to me. And the first thing, well, like I said earlier to you, I pray for these souls who died in a wicked state, without repentance, died fast, like in car accidents, and you didn't have time to, you're driving drunk or something like that, or on drugs, and you're middle of, who knows what, adultery, and then they crash and they die. I know they couldn't have time to, repent. So these demons, or this particular one, who must be in a hierarchy one, because it was, like I say, it was a CEO it's like how a CEO would act. It's not like a crazy one, like the ones that my brother had, with coming and grabbing him and ripping him and trying to pull him. This was not trying to do anything like that. As I said, it owned its space. It tried to convey to me, it said, like, no more. So it was like, no more. I didn't ask any questions. I was just sitting there looking at it. I was trying to burn this image into my head so I could remember this if I survived it, but I didn't feel like it was going to do anything other than that, to talk to me or to tell me what it didn't want me to do anymore. So it told me that. I was looking at this flame so much because it was a wall of blue flames, and it conveyed to me that only my spirit would feel the effects of this type of a fire. So I felt, okay, well, I guess I'm not a spirit yet, so I don't have to worry about that. You know what I mean? I guess someday when you become a spirit and your body is, buried 6 feet under, that spirit is a chastisement. It was like God's heated detestation for sin, and it looks like. It didn't look like it was burning anything. Like it didn't crackle, like when you have a fire in your fireplace and you hear wood burn. There was no wood burning. There was no smoke from it. It was I couldn't hear it. I couldn't hear anything like, when you normally hear a roaring fire. It didn't make any noise, and it wasn't burning anything. It had to be a miracle of God's creation that's going to be there for all eternity, for whoever falters so to join. This thing was 100% hatred. You could see how it was 100% hatred. When I tell people, don't leave this planet with any hatred in your heart, because this thing is going to work with you with that hatred. It's going to show you how to use that hatred to alleviate all your pain. You're going to have to be 100% hatred when you finally join it. You're not going to be yourself, your jovial self, drinking and doing drugs and stuff. You're going to have to be 100% hatred like this creature eventually. You couldn't exist there without it. It's, when we go to the next life and we actually see something like this, or brought there by like the demons that my brother was pulling him, and maybe they were going to bring him to this kind of this hierarchy demon. They're prepared to offer you interesting options. I'll tell you that right now. They're going to bewitch your spirit. You're going to be alone. You're going to have no support, and they have many wiles and deceptions that they could use on you. You know what I'm saying? They're going to show you their empire. Because I could see in between occasionally some of the flames, I think he wanted me to see his empire back there. You know what I'm saying? He's fine with it. Like I said, he owns it. That's his empire now. He's going to be there forever. He thinks it's just punishment. He's fine with that. But how are we going to be able to deal with this is beyond my comprehension after I had this experience, So I say, get rid of all that hatred in your heart. Anything, like I said, be it for your sister or brother or neighbor, anybody's race, religion, nationality, you got to leave this planet without any of that in your heart, because they're gonna work with that. They're gonna show you how you could use that. There's something going on there that is, you can exist. You're going to have to exist there for eternity. And you just something you just don't want to. It said to me, I thought this was like a threat in a way. It said to me, "We are many and many more wicked than I." So I don't know if this is like the first time, I'm going to tell you no more. He didn't say it like that, but when he said there's many more wicked than I, means maybe something more wicked is going. But I haven't stopped praying. It hasn't changed me one bit. I even pray more, believe it or not, now. So It's part of a system. It's intelligent. It's powerful. It's unbelievable that it really, really exists. That's the scariest part of the whole thing, is that that I always thought when I read the Bibles and stuff as a kid, and you grew up in devils, and you see it was blue. Like you used to mention something about blue. That really struck me, because every book I look in, or I ever saw my whole life, the devil was red, the fires were red. Its fires were blue. It was blue. I can't describe. I can't. Explain that. I put every detail in the book, so I'm hoping that whoever reads it, they'll get more out of it than I actually got. So it shows its words like fastidiously. It wasn't having a conversation with me. It was telling me what it wanted to tell me, So when we have another minute, I'll tell you what it did when it left, and then how I got rid of it got rid of it out of my house. So when you want, I'll start telling you that.
Yeah, go right ahead, John.
Oh yeah. So it like I said, it owned the room. It was in control. I mean, it was my house, but it was in control. It was like he didn't care less if this was my house. You know what I mean? I told you, it made itself clear, and it made it known to me, my wife, and my son it was here. That was his mission. He made each one of us know it was here. And then he finally, when the time came and then gave me whatever message it was not to, because I believe these souls that are falling, that aren't prayed for, are his. That's how I felt. That those were his. I had no right to step in between and pray for these souls that are falling, and hold it for a while until, if I can, possibly pray enough for it that it'll reverse it, or if God will consider somebody praying for it, it maybe not be sent to hell. You know what I mean? But this creature, it wanted to own those souls. It was like I was taking something away from it that it wanted so badly. It wants our souls so badly. That's the scary part of this powerful force. I mean, you have heaven, you have the universe, and you have hell. All three are pretty powerful forces. This thing, and you have this intelligent, organized creature. And he said there are many more wicked than him there waiting to capture your soul. Like I said, it's going to bewitch your spirit if you get stuck, somewhere between death and not going to heaven. You're definitely going to see something like this. It's definitely going to try to bewitch your spirit. It has lots of wiles and deceptions. It's going to seduce, entice, and beguile your soul while you're there, and you're going to be all alone with no support. It's probably going to have these little creatures that my brother had holding you there in front of him. I would imagine he'll show you, it's not so bad to go to hell. I bet he'll probably tell you something like that. He'll show you his empire built on it. I imagine you could do anything you want there. You know what I mean? Other than you're going to be in chastisement for eternity, which is, just imagine being in chastisement 24/7 for all of eternity. I can't even wrap my mind around that. It's impossible for me to even understand the suffering of a soul that's going to be there, because this is the power of God that we have to fear. He has the power to send you there and not think twice about you for all of eternity. That is the power we have to fear. We have to love God, but we have to fear his power, because we don't even understand the power of this God, who created us. And it's best that you find out now than later, because there's no second chance when you finally get there. So anyway, it told me everything. Like I saw his lips. It had lips. They weren't burnt. I mean, the fires weren't burning his face or lips. It wasn't like, when you see burnt flesh, you know what it is. It wasn't like burnt. It was like, like just the way I drew it. It was fine. It was like nothing was, doing any harm to but he's sitting in chastisement. So it's so hard to explain. That's why I put every detail I could in the book, so when the next reader reads it, he'll understand. So it decided, So I have my rosary beads right there, maybe a foot away from its head or so. It's on the table. He's about, maybe he's a couple feet away from his head. He's looking at me. He was confronting me like, not like when two men talk, they kind of talk on an angle to each other. They don't, confront each other face to face. This thing was confrontational. It was face to my face. You know what I mean? It had black eyes. If you see it from John Eagan, EAGAN.com, you'll see exactly what it looked like. It moved its mouth and its lips. It didn't like coincide with when it said, we are many and many more wicked than I couldn't, I don't know if I couldn't, like, when you read people's, you're looking at people and you read their lips, almost sometimes you can see the lips are coinciding with the words, but whatever his language was, it was being translated to me somehow. How he did it, I don't know. And when I say these things are powerful, they're powerful. So then he looked at me again. He looked down at my rosaries. And then he very slowly, he looked at me right straight in my eyes again. Then I saw his face start to blow up a little bit, like his mouth blow up. And it like a big thing of saliva. It spit right on my rosary beads, right on the table there. This is three-dimensional. It's just like if I was standing in front of you talking to you. It wasn't like a movie. It wasn't like, it was really, really there. I saw the saliva leave his mouth and hit my rosary beads. Then looked back at me, and it left slowly, not like crazy, like I tell you, this is the antithesis of any kind of an apparition, not like wind blowing and lightning and screaming. Slowly, just slowly, backed away exactly the way it came in. The blue flame started to dissipate. The rippling was like there going, and then finally the rippling went away. And I stood there, and I wanted to ingrain this into my head, exactly what he said, exactly what he looked like. But I couldn't stop looking at my rosary beads because I saw him spit on it. I saw saliva come out of his mouth. How it has saliva, I don't know when you're in the midst of flames. This is things that I can't explain. You know what I mean? There's so many things I can't explain. If you're in the midst of fire, I don't know how you can have something, but it has saliva. I don't know if this is what type of it was. So I'm looking at my rosary beads, and it's gone. It didn't actually leave the house yet. But I'm looking at my rosary beads, and looking at them and looking at them, and I poke at them a little bit to see if there's any saliva there. But then I notice there's no saliva on there, and I pick them up a little bit, and to see, and they pick them all the way up, but I saw him spit right on them. So it was his way of telling me, this is the thing that they hate. One of the things they hate, anybody praying to God. You know what I mean? He doesn't like prayers. He hates prayers. He's 100% hatred. So at that point, I'm thinking to myself, I have to. Is this thing still in the house? I got the most prevalent thing in my mind was I have to draw this thing right now while it's fresh in my mind. So I start drawing it, and I got the first sketch done. I want to type it. And I'm thinking, how am I going to get this out of the house now? So I'm thinking, in the morning, there's a 6:30 mass at our church. I'm Catholic, so that's what I go to the Catholic church. So I received the host. I come home. My wife keeps a thing of holy water in the kitchen, so I take the thing of holy water. And I take the holy, I spray it in every room, and I say, in the power of the name of Jesus Christ, who is in me right here. He's right here. I command you to leave these premises. I went through every room and said that. Every single room, every bedroom, every closet, everywhere. I went downstairs, and so I finally, the last bedroom on the end here, I'm saying that, spraying, and I'm telling them, Jesus is right here. There's no way you could defy Jesus. I have him right inside me right now. And I felt like the curtains and the blinds shook, and I felt it go out. And Matthew, ever since then, I haven't even heard a bump in the night. And this has been probably about a year now.
And this required no intervention from a priest?
No, not at all. Not at all. And I felt, because in the Bible, Jesus tells me, or anybody who wants to read it, you can raise the dead, you could heal the sick, you could expel demons in my name. And I take that to the bank. anything he says, I take it literally. So I thought, okay, maybe this is my chance to expel a demon, maybe someday I'll try to heal the sick in his name. But he told me I could do that. And I do believe every word he said. So that's exactly what I did. And it left, and it did accomplish what it wanted to accomplish, that's for sure. And as I said, I haven't even heard a bump in the night since then. My wife feels the evil is gone. My son says the house feels so refreshing now, So it's gone. So thank God for that anyway.
Well, it sounds like to me that this entity made a major mistake, because if it hadn't had wanted this face-to-face confrontation, you probably would have let this go on, wouldn't you?
What do you mean, Matthew? I'm not sure what you're saying. Oh, yeah. You mean if I didn't try to expel it in Jesus' name?
That's right.
Oh, yeah. I would think so, right? I mean, it had to be done. I knew it had to be done. The power of Jesus is unlimited, so I was, had no problem with that. But you're right about that. I never even thought that if I didn't do that, it might still be hanging around, right?
Right. It would have still been, creating this atmosphere of fear, walking around, these ghost footsteps, the doors opening and slamming. It could have continued that indefinitely. It sounds like to me its ultimate mistake was deciding to have a face-to-face confrontation with you, because that pushed you in the right direction. You had to make a decision. Yeah.
But, I wouldn't have known that my prayers were working. I wouldn't have known that this, you pray to God and you hope that everything is, is going to be real, and that you could actually save these people. I mean, there's nobody that I've ever met that I didn't like. I could relate to them on some level, no matter how wicked they are or what they're up to, what they want to do, you know what I mean? So these people who I knew who were wicked and died in their sin, and I asked God, don't send them to hell until I'm finished praying, or as long as you give me on this planet. And I keep adding one every single time I know somebody who else died. So that's, I wouldn't have known that. I wouldn't have, saw a blue flame. I didn't know, I always thought hell was like red flames. I don't know, maybe I said to my wife, if anybody tells you that they saw hell and they said the flames were red, they didn't see hell. And then she was like, yeah, it's true, I guess, but maybe you saw a different part of it or something. You know what I mean? Maybe that's true too, but I saw blue flames, and I mean, there's so much I understood from it. I see how I didn't know they were so. I mean, I knew that the angels were powerful, like the archangels. They sounded like they were powerful, and like they like these creatures I saw was intelligent enough to convince. Well, we find out in the Bible that they convinced a third. A third is a big portion of the angels to leave heaven. That they convinced them. Like I said to you, people could convince you to take your love for God away and turn you into an atheist, or take your compassion away and don't care who dies or who doesn't die. People can do that. Can you imagine this archangel that's now a demon, the intelligent of the ages? It was created before time even began, and it's been around such a long time that this thing is so dangerous. You have to worry about something like that,
Well, you just mentioned strike number 2. His second big mistake was letting you know that God was hearing your prayers.
Yeah, well, that's true. I would hope that God would hear everybody's prayers. So I would hope so anyway, right?
Right, but up until this point, that's all you were doing. You were hoping.
Yeah, we will hope. We pray and we hope that everything turns out right. I don't, to have an encounter like this is like, so it's supernatural. You know what I mean? Who would ever think in their lifetime they would encounter something like this? I would rather an angel came and told me that. You know what I mean? It would have been a lot simpler and a lot less stressful. But it didn't, and I had to learn it from a high-ranking demon. I didn't know. It didn't tell me what his name was. It didn't, you know what I mean? It wasn't there for have a conversation with me. It was like whatever I told you is what he told me. And when I felt that any souls is coming in his direction, he doesn't want anybody to interfere with that.
Well, John, let me ask you this. Did your wife or your son ever see anything like this?
No, they weren't even actually home then. They weren't home. Yeah. So it wanted to have wanted to have a meeting with me for sure. It didn't have anything to say to them about anything. Although my wife's a very holy lady. I mean, she does work for the church. She constantly going over there and washing the linens that they need, and she's in charge of the adoration chapel. She does all the wonderful things that they do for the church. But this was like I said to you, a gift for me. The gift was that it wasn't going to be able to hurt me. I could see that it couldn't pass through that whole wall of flame. It only could go up to his head. It conveyed the information, and I think it's going to help a lot of people in their life to understand. It's like a little veil that was pulled to the side for a second or so that I got to see into and learn something from. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a long time. It wasn't like I learned a whole lot from it. It was just pulled back the veil for a few minutes, and now I can convey to people what really is there in the next life. Well, I don't know what. Go ahead.
Well, John, you said something that makes it third time's a charm. This entity actually made 3 mistakes. His third mistake was doing it at the wrong time because your wife and your son wasn't there.
Right.
So he did it at the exact wrong time to the exact wrong person, and he completely underestimated what your reaction was going to be, because your reaction was to get up, let me get off this couch, let me go room to room and bless this house in Jesus' name and get this thing out of here. So it seems like to me, John, that he made 3 critical mistakes by having this face-to-face confrontation with you.
Probably right. You're probably right, Matthew.
So with that in mind, I don't see how you could view this any other way except a gift.
Yeah, that's how I see it. That's how I see it. I see it as a gift that I can relate to other people, let them think about it, let them read about it, let them contemplate it. Let them understand the power of the next life, Let them understand the power of God. That, like I said earlier, we have to love God, but we have to fear His power. He is infinite. The thing about being infinite, it means, like, when we die and go to heaven, we're not going to, understand this infinite Creator. Like, all of a sudden we understand it. Because it's infinite, you can't even scratch the surface of what's infinite, because the surface is infinite. So for all of eternity, God will bless us, and He'll give us graces, and we'll understand Him a little bit more, and we'll feel His love a little bit more. We'll see wonderful things because He's a creator. All He does is create. All we know is heaven, universe, and hell. He has infinite amount of creations that we'll probably be able to, look at and enjoy, but we'll never put God in a box if we're in heaven for all of eternity and say, oh, that's what God is. That's never going to happen. When you're dealing with the infinite, that's never, ever going to happen.
Well, John, I hope people are extremely encouraged by this. Ladies and gentlemen, God does hear your prayers.
Absolutely.
And number 2, you have to do something. You can't sit in a corner and be afraid. Take note that as soon as this entity was exit stage left, John got up and started blessing the house. In the simple fact that this has never happened again is proof, once again, God was with John. God heard John's prayers.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen,
amen to that.
If and when you have an experience like this, you got to do something. Do not sit there and allow yourself, and especially your loved ones, to be abused, because this entity was tricked. Ladies and gentlemen, the Lord Jesus Christ tricked this entity into this confrontation at exactly the wrong time, because John's loved ones wasn't there. At exactly the wrong place, because John was at his place where he always prayed. That was his second mistake. The third mistake was underestimating John's faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. This entity thought that he would scare the living daylights out of John, and then he'd have the run of the house. That was a fail.
That's right.
That was a fail mistake.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Matthew.
So, with that in mind, John, give us, make sure you tell everybody the exact title to your book and where you can purchase that book, please.
Yeah, so if you go to John-Eagan, EAGAN.com, that's where the book is. It's an ebook. All you do is press a button or two, and then you'll get the ebook right into your email. You could see, you'll get the picture of, you'll get the cover of the ebook too. But there you could see the actual, the cover of the book, the actual what this demon looked like, his environment of blue flames, and exactly what he looked like there. Also on that website, as I said earlier, I did this beautiful bust of Jesus about a year ago, made from the Adoration candles from the Adoration Chapel. You can see I put some of the newspaper articles in there. USA Today, which is one of the biggest publications in the world, liked it so much they put a whole full page of it in there with me and my statue there. Ripley's, believe it or not, wanted to buy it and put it in one of their museums. I told them, you want to buy it, it's $1 million, because I'm not selling it. They've called me back a few times, increased their costs. I mean their money for the statue. But I said, when you get hit $1 million, then you call me back, because I don't want to sell it anyway. I love my artwork, and I don't really want to sell it. But it would be, and I bring it to like a lot of churches want me to bring it there, which is fantastic, because when you see it, it's so beautiful, so perfect. The statue came out so beautiful. But that's on the website too, so you could see that there. And the book, John-Eagan, EAGAN.com. All the information is there. Look at it, look through it. You could read the first part of the book there, and if you feel that you want to finish reading all the details, which I think would be a good idea, I did the best I can. The book came out perfect and beautiful as far as I'm concerned. People love it. They seem to love it, and hopefully you will too. It would be wonderful.
Well, thank you kindly, John. It has been a blessing speaking with you, and
you were great, Matthew, by the way. I just want to say how great you were. Thank you very much for a great interview.
You are most welcome, John. And I hope all goes well, and I hope you get the message out there to people who need it.
Absolutely. Come back anytime you want.
All right. Thank you kindly, John. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.